Hello, welcome to your favorite sports show, Sports Pizza. My name is Edwin Onyebolise. If you're an Arsenal fan, I'm sure you are currently in high heavens because the question is, who is going to stop the Gunners? Who will stop Mikel Arteta's men? That is the question I'll be posing to Bankole as we delve into all that transpired from the world of sports over the weekend, of course, in this new week. Talking about this new week, there are plenty of games from the UEFA Champions League and the UEFA Europa League. Don't forget that on the show, we'll give you the very best of tips on the Tipster's Corner. So fasten your seatbelts. Let's go on a short break. When we return, we'll delve into all that we have in store for you. Once again, it is your favorite sports show, Sports Pizza. Don't go nowhere. We'll be back. Welcome back. Let's delve straight into the action. And before that, let me introduce my homeboy, Banky. Bankole, what's up? How you doing?
Edwin, it's good to be here once again.
Yeah.
After a weekend of, let me say, a weekend where Milan
Robinson.
I'm sure that Inter Milan still remain on the back burners when it comes to the Derby Italia. You look at, it's in the last 4 games, Milan have had the upper hand. You also consider that they won the Super Coppa in very, very exciting fashion earlier this year. And now they've gone on to defeat Inter Milan. Mike Maignan, is back to his best. And hopefully all Milan fans are asking the management and the administrators to play whatever it is that is asking for. He shouldn't be believing on a free. A goalkeeper of that quality should get whatever salary is demanding.
Not to worry, we'll talk about Milan very soon, but let's start from England where we saw the North London derby, Arsenal versus Tottenham Hotspur. Bankole, a couple of weeks ago, I asked you who could stop Arsenal. You didn't really give me a definite answer, as much as you alluded that Arsenal are currently the best team in England. You felt that there were some holes where opponents could exploit, but few weeks further down the line, do you still hold that assertion that there are loopholes in this Arsenal team? Because from where I sit, from what I've seen so far, I don't think there's any team right now who can stop Arsenal other than Arsenal themselves.
You look at the shape of the team, you look at how defensively they've been really good.
Yeah.
Regardless of whatever personnel makes up the back four, it is always going to be difficult to break down the Arsenal defense. It is always going to be difficult to dominates them in midfield. They are bullies, basically. And you look at the Premier League where a lot of teams are shying away from the physicality aspect of the games. A lot of teams are shying away from having players who can go into duels and win duels in every area of the pitch. Arsenal are filled with players like that. Arsenal are filled with players who would out muzzle you, would win whatever physical match, physical combat that is going on in the field of play. So I think for Arsenal, in terms of the physical aspect, in terms of the technical aspect, they have a fine balance. In terms of experience, in terms of youth, they also have a fine balance. In terms of bringing on quality off the bench also, they are also the best team in the league. And you look at other teams are not even close to it. Manchester City are clearly not up there. Chelsea are the closest to them in terms of points, but also in terms of quality. I don't think they can maintain that consistency in the 38th match league. So I don't want to say let's just put the ribbons and give Arsenal the trophy, because it's still match day 12. There can still be a lot of imploding in Arsenal. We've seen it several times. There can still be an unfortunate case of injury ravaging the team. But I think from where I stand, it's going to be very difficult to stop Arsenal.
But for Arsenal on the day, the star man was Eberechi Eze. In fact, the first player to score a hat-trick in the North London derby in the Premier League era. The last time it happened was in the 70s. Beyond his goals, he's sticking to this Arsenal team like dog to water. And I posed a question on my social media handle. I'm going to ask you that question on set today. With Odegaard watching from the stands and Eze putting up top-notch performances in that central role and scoring goals, that's very crucial. What is the most effective midfield trident for Arsenal? Is it the one with Eberechi Eze at the tip or the one with Odegaard at the tip? Because the base we know we have Zubimendi, and Declan Rice?
I think for Eze, getting the best out of him depends on the number 9 that you're using. And for a team like Arsenal, you don't want to put yourself in that particular box. The reason why we saw the best of Eze was because he was able to interchange with Merino. He was, at some point, was the furthest player, up front. He was able to like switch positions with Trossard. That fluidity in the midfield, in the tip of the midfield. But for Odegaard, I think he can evolve into whatever shape you want him to. He can get the best out of whatever striker you have up front. We've seen Eze with Gyökeres, and that dynamic has been quite subpar, to put it like that. So if Odegaard is fit and firing, I think Eze would have to go to the left. I think we would settle as a left winger. Even as a left winger, I don't see a player in that Arsenal squad that is better than him in terms of productivity, in terms of creativity, in terms of technical ability. Maybe Trossard, you might say, is the closest to him, but I don't think in terms of form from last season and this season you want to put a Trossard ahead of Eze, especially when you also consider this was a player that was brought in for 60 million quid. Martinelli, yes, he blows out and cold once in a while, but Eze definitely starts on the left wing. But for the battle between him and Odegaard for the number 10 position, it has to be Odegaard for me.
What's up with Liverpool? 60 defeats in 7 games. You look at the horrible run of form at home. They suffered their heaviest loss in the Premier League era, or joint heaviest loss in the Premier League era to Nottingham Forest, who, by the way, got back-to-back wins at Anfield in consecutive seasons. Bankole, I don't want to peddle the rhetoric of, he won last season because it was a club team, now this is his team and he's struggling. Where do you stand in the context of this conversation?
Yeah, for me, I think it's lazy analysis if you say, he won the league title because he was a club's team.
Yeah.
I think last season he implemented things. He got the best out of that team in the best way he could. You could see a clear difference between what Klopp would have done to what he did last season. I'm not saying Klopp is a bad manager or Klopp would have gone on to win the league also last season, but I think there was a different, style of play, from Arne Slot. You can say, yes, a lot of factors could have contributed to whatever it is that's going on. The grief of Diego Jota, the loss of Trent Alexander-Arnold. I also felt like Gravenberch had a purple patch, last season. I never thought of him as, one of the best defensive midfielders in the league. And if you want to consolidate on your league title, if you want to also go on and compete or go on and win the Premier League again, I've always said that they needed an upgrade, not just a backup. They needed an upgrade on Gravenberch, and they failed to do that. They failed to bring in a centre back. Van Dijk and Konate we know is not the best defenders when it comes to availability. Van Dijk also father's time is catching up to him. You can clearly see that physically is kind of spent. And for Salah, and this is my opinion. When it came to the whole contract extension, I've always felt they should have allowed Van Dijk and Salah go and put all your eggs into the Trent basket. He's the youngest, is the one with how will I say, is the one with the most ties, with Liverpool. He's the one who you can categorically say might go on to be a future Liverpool captain if he already isn't, a captain. So Van Dijk and Salah are both in their 30s, and especially when it comes to forwards like Salah, the decline can happen overnight. It's with Salah, who is always relying on his space to get him behind. That decline, that physical decline, it tends to happen quickly. And for Van Dijk, we can clearly see how he's struggling, this season. I don't want to say I didn't see it coming, but I did. 450 million spent on forwards. Isak, Florian Reeds, Jeremy Frimpong. These are guys who have not exactly come into the team and made it their home. There are still question marks over what position will you get the best out of Florian Reeds. Isak is clearly not fit yet, and the lack of precision has played its part, on the struggles we've seen from Isak. But I think Arne Slot, if there's any manager who can turn things around, is Arne Slot. I'm not writing him off yet. I'm not saying he should get the sack, but he has a lot of work to do. If you want things to change, the January transfer window would also open very soon. Maybe go in there, get a centre back or get a DM. Maybe not someone who is flashy, someone who is fancy, but get someone who can do the job. I don't think Endo or whatever it is that they have on the bench can cut it, but get someone in centre back and a DM, and you will see a change from what we are seeing right now.
All right, from England we head straight to Spain, where Bankole, a couple of weeks ago, it was about 6-7 points between Barcelona and Real Madrid. Right now it's just 1 point. Real Madrid top of the table, Barcelona breathing down their neck, and you have Atletico Madrid and Villarreal just around the corridor. It was another lethargic performance against Elche. What seems to be the problem for Real Madrid? again, there are questions about Xabi Alonso. Why? It feels like the players don't know what to do. Defensively, they are scattered. Offensively, there's no idea. Let me put it that way, for a lack of better words. Channel towards attacking play, and sometimes when you need individual brilliance, these players really step up. What's the problem?
For a team like Madrid, for a team who have a set of players who are always relying on their instincts, always relying on moments, to win games, you can't bring in a manager who would now pump in too much information, and that's the problem. We're seeing, a manager trying to instill too many ideas, too many shapes, structure, passing sequences. It's not going to work for a team like Madrid. I'm not saying Xabi Alonso is a bad manager. I think he's good. What he did at Bayern Leverkusen is probably something we wouldn't see in Germany for a very long time. But for a team like Madrid, I think he has to adapt to these players. We saw it with Carlo Ancelotti. Whatever it is that you might feel towards Carlo Ancelotti, whatever it is you might feel towards his tactical ideology, you could clearly see that for a team like Madrid, you don't force the players to adapt to you. You adapt to the players. You adapt to the skill sets that they have. So when you now come in and you now start imposing a certain structure, a certain shape, you have to press this way, you have to pass this way, it's not going to work for Madrid. And you can clearly see how the players are somewhat rebelling, towards that idea, that belief that Xabi Alonso is trying to instill. I don't think it's a case of the players not being good enough. You have a Kylian Mbappe who has scored a gazillion amount of goals this season. There's still a certain Rodrigo, Jude Bellingham. These are guys, Vinicius Junior. These are guys who normally are the best in the world in their positions. But when you now start to make them play in a certain way, try to force them into a certain box, it's not going to work. And Xabi Alonso has to realize this quickly before it gets out of hand.
For Barcelona, they seem to be having it right in attack. But you also get a feeling that defensively you don't know what to expect from them. And there's also Atletico Madrid and Villarreal. Are we looking at a tight title race, or do you think at some point the top two will just pull away from the chasing park?
I think the top two will pull away from the chasing park. I saw the game between Getafe and Atletico Madrid, and it was an eyesore. You look at it.
You don't expect fancy football.
No. It's not even about fancy football. It's not even about Getafe. We've seen it in several games this season with Atletico Madrid. Even against Elche, we saw it against.
But they're grinding out
results. Against Osasuna. We saw it against Mallorca. They drop points in all of these games that I'm talking about. So you look at Atletico Madrid this season, and you look at Diego Simeone. I think, like I said, I think the cycle has ended for a while now, and whatever it is that we're seeing is just them trying to stretch it out to what it shouldn't be. But Atletico Madrid, Villarreal, Real Sociedad, and the likes, I don't see them competing. Yes, Real Madrid and Barcelona might not be at their best, but these guys at second gear are still clearly better than whatever it is La Liga has to offer.
And finally, for our European round of Bancole, we head straight to Italy, the Italian Serie A. It feels like that's top of the table. Nobody wants to take a stronghold of it. Today it's Milan, tomorrow it's Inter, next time it's Napoli, now it is Roma. Who's going to take charge? And what's happening in Serie A?
So I think for the Serie A, like I said, this is a league where you have an exceptional amount of talented managers, if I can use that phrase, in a certain league. You look at the top four, Inter Milan, maybe aside from Christian Kivu, you have managers who have been there, done it. Allegri, Conte, and Gasparini, all vying, for the top spots. Yeah, but yeah, it is a case where all these guys are quite close in terms of player quality, and the only X factor they have are their managers. And when you have something like that, it is always going to be a revolving door, of whoever it is can stay at the top spot. So it is exciting. Even though we have not seen a lot of goals this season, Çalhanoğlu have been the highest goal scorer for a while with 5 goals. He was leveled, Pulisic leveled with him in the game with the goal. He's also on 5 goals, and you also consider that he has also played 5 games this season. It's an insane amount of efficiency, from the American. But for the Serie A as a whole, we're not seeing a lot of goals because there are too many, tactical, will I say, inputs. There are too many. There's not a lot of gap, between these managers. These are guys who, like I said, are some of the best, in the world in terms of, being able to bring in a tactical plan, to win games, to win league titles. So yeah, I'm not surprised. I think it's going to be like this till the end of the season. Although at some point you might start to see a clear gap between the top 3, Inter Milan, Napoli, and Milan, and then Roma might drop by because of the European obligations and all. But yeah, at the end of it, I still think these three guys, the guys who have won the Scudetto in the last 4 years, will still go on to form a good shape at the top three.
There you have it, a rundown of the European games over the weekend. We'll go on a short break. When we return, there's more on the other side. It's going down the wire in Formula One. Welcome back from that short break. I did say we have more in store for you. This time I'm going to the world of Formula One, where Bankole, for whatever reasons, we're going into the final 2 races of the season with a lot to fight for. Max Verstappen won the Grand Prix this weekend, and for Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, they were disqualified because they had an equipment in the car that was past the limits. Now, in Formula One, the lower the car, the faster it is. So there's a certain limit where your car needs to be at for you to race legally. And the FIA said McLaren did not try to bypass the law, but still they were found guilty. That's not the conversation. The conversation is the points difference between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen is down to 24 points. We have 2 races left, and in those 2 races, one of them has a sprint race. So altogether, we have 58 points left in the final 2 races of this season. How do you see this playing out?
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. Like I said, you have the best driver on the grid up against the best car on the grid. McLaren, obviously. Yes, you might say in terms of the last 10 years, the last couple of years, the McLaren car is not, would I say, up to speed as to the other cars that we've seen, the Mercedes car that we've seen, the Red Bull cars that we've seen. But at this current season, it is one of the best cars, on the circuit. But for Max Verstappen, if there's any guy who can overturn this deficit, any guy who you'd want to back going into the final 2 races, and especially when one of the race is a sprint race, is Max Verstappen. But my only problem is when once he sees there's an opening, he tends to take too many risks. And yes, that's the reason why he has the Mad Max. That's the reason why he has gotten to where he is. Yeah. But I fear that when you try to do something like that, when the margins are this close, you might make a mistake, you might make an error that would lead you, to concede, to Lando Norris. But Lando Norris, I think he would also want to be careful, would also want to try to manage the remaining 2 races. He'll always try to be on the defensive side, basically. And I think it's quite clear now. There's not going to be any competition between him and Piastri. He's the guy who is the front runner for the World Championship, and it's going to be quite interesting to see how he plays. But my money is still going to be on Lando Norris, even though I still think if there's anybody who can overturn this deficit, it has to be Mad Max.
For Lando Norris, he can still win the title this weekend. All he needs to do is ensure that he has 2 more points over Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri. If that happens, he will be crowned the champion of the 2025 Grand Prix. If that doesn't happen, it goes to the final race of the season in Abu Dhabi. All right, guys, enough Formula One. Quick one from the home scene. Bankole, Rivers United representing Nigeria on the continent, CAF Champions League. As expected, we said it that it was going to be an uphill task against Pyramid. They went, they saw, and they were thoroughly conquered.
Yeah, like you said, it was expected. I was not expecting any miracle. I didn't think they could go toe to toe with Pyramids in Egypt, even in Nigeria. It's quite clear that the lacuna, you have to use that type of word. The gap, between Rivers United and Pyramids is quite huge. It is a case of boys against men. Pyramids at this point got to the finals last season. This is a team, that is relatively new.
Up until 2016, they were virtually in the doldrums.
So you look at this and you look at the gap. You look at how they've managed to progress, and supersede whatever it is that we have to offer, in Nigeria. It's quite clear that whenever you put in effort, whenever you're intentional about your football, you would always get results. And we've been far from intentional, and this is how we'll continue to embarrass ourselves on the continent.
All right, guys, we need to go on a break. Our video for the week, but before that, quick one: Bankole start bench drop. Teams that are most likely to finish behind Arsenal: Manchester City, Chelsea, or Liverpool?
Right now, I think Chelsea should be finishing second, City third, and Liverpool fourth.
Oh, straight one. All right, guys, there we go on the breakout video for the week. When we return, we'll wrap up the show with the Tipsters Corner. So get your pens and your papers and be ready for Octopus Bankole. Welcome back from that short break. I'm sure Arsenal fans still reveling in the moment, and hat-trick boy Iberichi Eze, he slept good.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you consider I was on the verge of joining Spurs before I'm finally making a move to Arsenal. And yeah, hopefully this will be something that will kickstart his Arsenal career into what we expect it to be.
All right, straight up to our Tipsters Corner. We have two games for you this weekend. It is the London derby, Chelsea versus Arsenal at Stamford Bridge, and in Italy, Stadio Olimpico will host Roma versus Napoli.
So for Chelsea versus Arsenal, it is a game where I expect both teams to be quite cautious. Arsenal have always been a very defensive team. Chelsea also, yes, it might not look like it, but there's a sound defensive structure, in that Chelsea team. Yes, the personnel might let down the manager once in a while, but you can clearly see that he has an idea. He has a shape that he wants to instill, and it's quite working. Even though when you consider the likes of Adara Bioy or the likes of Chalobah, these are guys who should not, be starting for a team that wants to win the Premier League title. So yeah, I think both teams would have to settle for a draw. I think Chelsea would score in this game, although it is quite, would I say, a mountain to climb to score against Arsenal, but I think Chelsea would pick up a goal in this game. I don't see them losing either. Probably 1-1 draw. Both teams to score, draw over 2.5, corners over 8.5, over 9.5. If you want to be ambitious, you can go for over 10.5 corners. You can also go for the yellow cards in this game. Over 4.5 yellow cards also looks like something that might interest you. Any team to score 3 in a row? No. That is something that I always go to, is my go-to option when it comes to putting it on the haka. So yeah, I think first half draw also, or draw at least in one half. Seems like something that's also viable in this game. It's also at the Stamford Bridge, so I don't exactly see Chelsea losing. This is a game that will determine the Premier League competition, the race to the title. So yeah, I think these are both teams who would be quite close, even though from what we've seen, it is quite difficult to come to that conclusion. But I think on the day, it's going to be quite close. For Roma against Napoli, I also don't see Napoli beating Roma. I think there are a lot of weaknesses in that Napoli team that Roma can take advantage of. Roma, when it comes to intensity, when it comes to outrunning, out physically out muscling their opponents, they are quite there in the Italian league this season. Gasparini has gradually instilled his identity into this Roma team, and the way he has done it has been quite interesting. He focused on the very defensive side of things. One of the best defensive teams, in the league. So you look at Napoli, who are struggling to score goals. Yes, they won last weekend, but they are struggling to score goals. They are struggling to, maintain a shape. Injuries have played a part in that. But Rasmus Højlund is struggling to score goals. McTominay also has not been the goal-scoring supporting striker, not midfielder, goal-scoring supporting striker that he was last season. So I think Roma should be fastening their chances to at least take something away from them. So at least a Roma double chance around 4.5, over 1.5 also might be something you might want to go for.
All right, there you have it. Remember, you have to bet responsibly. Yes, Sports Pizza is not responsible for any bet loss. We'll only give you expert analysis on the possible outcomes of these games. We are not playing these games. We don't play these games. We don't have influence over these games. What we have influence over is our analysis. This is where we draw the curtains on today's show. I'm sure you've had so much fun with us. It's been informative, educational, and of course a bit of entertainment. We'll see you same time next week. Always a pleasure doing this with you, Bankole.
Yeah, it's always good to be here, Edwin. And from me to our audience, have yourself a lovely week.
Do have a fantastic sporting week. God bless you.